The views and opinions of the guests of Veterans Archives do not reflect the views and opinions of Veterans Archives, its subsidiaries, or its partners. Hello and welcome to Veterans Archives. This is a podcast where you can learn about our military history in the words and voices of the men and women who lived and created it. I'm your host, Bill Krieger, and let's listen to our next story.
Today is July 31st, 2023. We're with Joe Gregory, who served in the U.S. Army Reserves, and retired from the National Guard. How are you doing today, Joe?
Good, very good.
So let's start off with where you're from and when you were born.
So I'm from Lansing. I was born in St. John's. That's where our family doctor was, because my dad grew up in a farm in St. John's, but grew up in a house with 5 brothers on the south side of Lansing. They're over in the MLK Jolly area.
What year were you born?
March of 1967.
March of 1967. You had 5 brothers, you said?
He had 4 older brothers and a younger brother.
Okay.
So I'm the 5th of 6 boys.
Okay. And your parents. Tell me a little bit about your parents.
So, again, my dad was raised in St. John's on a farm. He was an identical twin. That's where, like I said, my family doctor was there growing up. My mom was from Virginia area. She moved up here to help her sister out when her sister was sick. And she was working as a secretary on Fort Custer when my parents met back in the 50s. So, but my mom, my dad worked for Schaefer's Bakery. He was a baker for almost 30 years before they closed. And then he bounced around to a couple different bakeries in the area. And my mother was a manager for the Sears Roebuck Company. For
what Roebuck Company?
Sears Roebuck.
Sears Roebuck?
Yeah, Sears. You've heard some Sears?
Yep, Sears.
Yeah, Kenmore, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yep, Craftsman Tools.
Okay. Yep. So did your dad serve?
My dad served 3 years during the Korean War, but he was stationed in Germany at the time.
Okay. What was his MOS?
He was a cook.
A cook, which led him into baking.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said your mom and dad met at Fort Custer?
My mom was working at Fort Custer when, I don't know exactly where they met, but she was working as a secretary at Fort Custer when they met.
Okay. And what high school did you go to?
Everett High School.
Everett High School. Did you play any sports while you were there?
Not for Everett. I played basketball for many years. Basketball for my church league, and then this is before soccer was in the school systems. They had the AYSO, so I played several seasons of soccer as well.
Okay. As far as you have 5 brothers, were you competitive with anything that? Well,
the youngest of my older brothers is 6 years older, so there was a big gap between my older brothers and me and my younger brother, and nothing really competitive on other than what things you do. We play yard ball or whatever, but other than that, not really.
Are you close with them today, or are you?
Majority of them, yeah. So.
In the Lansing area? Or?
I got 2 of my brothers are still in the Lansing area, and I got 3 out of state. So.
Okay. And I remember I did honors for your dad.
You did? Yeah.
A while. That was like 10 years ago, right?
No, it was November of 14.
14?
Yeah.
So yeah, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And is your mom still around? Or?
No, my mom died in December of 1988, so right before I turned 22.
Okay. So as far as you joining the military, would you consider your dad to be one of the biggest reasons you joined?
I think I had a lot of family influence. My My brother Chuck joined in 1973 when I was about 6. So I think going to see his graduation from boot camp down at Fort Jackson when I was, I don't even know if I was kindergarten or first grade then, but that had a big impact on me. My brother Scott joined in 79 and did the same thing. So
both Army or
both Army? Yep. My brother Chuck was a cook. He served at Fort Polk. My brother Scott was a rigger for the 82nd Airborne there at Fort Bragg. So, but I don't know if you know Colonel Connell, Jeff Connell. He's retired now, but his
Youth Challenge Academy.
Youth Challenge Academy, that's correct. He grew up across the street. His dad was in the Marine Corps. So his dad's final years was here at Easter, but so they were part of the family as well, and having a Marine across the street, and my mom was big in the military. My dad was, so yeah, it was kind of a whole family thing.
Okay. And when you joined, do you remember where you joined? Do you remember your recruiter's name?
I don't remember his name, but I joined out of Detroit. It was before the MEPS was in Lansing. It was March 23rd, 1984. It was my 17th birthday.
Okay, so you knew like when you were 16, like this is.
I knew when I was probably 10. That's what I was going to do. I knew when I was young that that was always the goal.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's awesome. So when you went through MEPS, did you start out artillery? I know I've always known you as artillery. So did you? So
I joined the 4th and 20th, which is on Marshall Street, right by the Guard Armory, and so it became a 13 Bravo. So when I transitioned out of that to active duty, they wouldn't let me change MOSs. So I've been a 13 Bravo my entire career until I got a 3rd rocker and became 13 Zulu.
Okay. So when you went to when you joined, do you remember the date you shipped off to basic training and where you went?
Well, I went so I was still a junior in high school. So I don't know the exact date, but it would have been in June of 84, and went off to Fort Sill, did basic training, then came back.
Was it OSIT then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but it really didn't apply to me because I was only doing basic, and then came back and did my senior
split
year.
Op.
Yeah, I was doing split ops, and then did my AIT after senior year high school.
Okay. Did you like doing it that route?
That was fine. Yeah, I mean, it got my foot in the door as early as possible. So yes.
Okay. Did you drill 1 weekend a month in your senior year?
Yes, absolutely.
Did you do it out of the Marshall Street Armory or
the Armory is just north of what you think is the Marshall Street Armory. It's across from LCC, but it is on Marshall Street.
Yeah, it's like a flat building. It's like a Navy.
It's now the Red Cross building, or actually it was the Red Cross building, but yeah.
Is it Navy now?
No. It's a state. Actually, the Michigan Guard owns the building now, but
yeah, there's recruiters there. If I remember, there was.
I don't think it's occupied. For my days in the CFMO, I don't think it was occupied. The Navy building is where the 119th is. So
okay.
Where the 4th and 20th building is just a little north of that.
Okay.
So,
and so you drilled out of there, and then you went to AIT, and then when you came back, you were in the unit there, and at some point how long were you in that unit before you went active duty right after?
So I didn't graduate on time. When I come back from, basically I dropped out of high school When I come back from AIT, I start looking into it. And then they said for me to go active duty, I had to get my diploma. So I went to an adult education program, and January of '87, I ended up, checking all the blocks and shipping off to Fort Hood, Texas.
Fort Hood, Texas. So were you stationed there first?
Stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. The 3rd of the 82nd Field Artillery in the 1st Cav Division.
Okay. And do you remember who your leader in your leadership? Anybody?
So I started when I got there. They put me in the 3 section. So I started working in the TOC. After a while, I ended up being the S3's driver. Due to transition and stuff, I ended up being the battalion commander's driver. Due to some specialized equipment we were training on, and I was one of the few people that knew how to use it in the commander's driver EETS. So they made me the boss's driver until after NTC rotation, and then
what howitzers did you guys have?
109s.
109 SP or just 109?
109s are self-propelled.
Okay. That's
So,
what I thought.
Yeah, so then I got to go down the gun line after that NTC rotation, and I was in Bravo Battery there under Sergeant Fisher. Learned a lot with him because when I was in the reserves, I was on an 8-inch. So I spent 2 years at Fort Hood not having worked on 109s. So when I finally got down to a gun section, it was an E4, but I was a little behind the power curve in knowledge. And I had the gun chief that got me up to speed pretty quick.
Okay. So when you say 8-inch, is that what was the name of the howitzer?
It's an M110.
M110.
Yes.
Okay. I know I've heard it referred to that as well. So then you went from there to 109. And as far as that would be a 155 millimeter shell, correct? Okay. And what positions did you hold on the 109?
I've pretty much done every position in a gun section.
Okay.
So there hasn't been one that I haven't done throughout my career.
So while you were at Fort Hood, what positions?
Ammo? No, I wasn't ammo team chief. I was probably powder runner and AG. That's so long ago, I don't even remember.
Okay.
So,
well, the reason I didn't know if you got up to, like, if you were a gunner or
no.
Okay, so you did everything but gunner and ammo team chief there, and learned a lot about the 109. Correct. And you were at Fort Hood for how long?
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and from Fort Hood, where'd you go?
I went to Korea for my first tour of Korea.
Ooh. So you got to Korea at what year?
That would have been September of '89.
September of '89. And when you got to Korea, when you landed in Korea, what was your first thought?
That I really don't remember. Don't remember much about that. I know we were you have to impress through Camp Casey. And I remember going through a little bit of that process, not much. But then it was sent up to my battalion. It was first of the 4th Field Artillery. We were actually the Field Artillery Battalion for the DMZ. So we were only a couple clicks off the units that were stationed on the Z.
So what you're telling me is something went down, then the artillery is going to be firing.
Oh, absolutely.
To North Korea.
Absolutely. We had a fire base up there, and a battery we rotated a battery through that fire base once a month. So there was rotation, and so there was
24/7 operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you were like on call for it.
Absolutely.
That's kind of scary a little bit, right?
So it was different. So
yeah. Yeah. So was it Kim Jong Il then, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a while ago. I don't remember all the politicians back then.
I want to say it's Kim Jong Il, but I could be mistaken. So is there anybody that you remember from Korea? I can think of one name. T-Mac. Was it McAuliffe out there with you?
That was my second tour.
Your second tour. Okay.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I'm jumping ahead here.
Yes, you are. Yeah, that was, for my first tour, not really. I remember, there was a Fort observer, Clint Bartley. He was Samoan. He was with me at Hood, and we went there relatively the same time. So, I kind of hung out with him and, a group of Samoans that were kind of hung out. So, those are the guys I kind of hang out with.
Okay. Yeah. The first time I ever met a Samoan was when I went active duty.
Yeah. There's a difference.
Yeah. They were huge. But they were good to have on your team, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you served there about 18 months? 12 months?
12 months.
Okay. And from there, where'd you go?
Fort Hood. Came from Fort Hood, went to Fort Benning.
Okay.
Georgia. Yes, Fort Benning, Georgia. Left. By the time I left in September, my unit at Fort Benning had already shipped off to Desert Shield. So, I in process at Benning. I got put on a special duty detail where I basically worked the range control during the hunting season, and that lasted until January. And as soon as that duty was over, I processed and shipped over to Desert Storm.
Okay, and so where'd you go when you were in Desert Storm? What?
So we were attached to the 24th ID. I was in the 197th Infantry Brigade, but we're attached to basically their roundout brigade was a Georgia National Guard and didn't qualify, so we became their 3rd Brigade. And then we basically did the end around north. Did the cutoff mission, and when they were running everybody out of Kuwait.
Okay.
So.
And that was, it's like Republican National Guard. Is that Republican Guard?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know why I said National Guard, but Republican Guard.
But yeah.
And what exactly? I mean, what do you remember most about that tour, and how long was it?
Desert Storm?
Yeah.
It was only 2 months. I got there, I think, like the 2nd of February, and late February is when everything, the air war had already started. But so got there, the battalion was at already 110% strength. So I got put in the service battery. I was driving a Hemet. And so when the war kicked off, I just drove for 3 days. So
not a bad gig.
No, I mean, it was long. There was some sandstorms we had to go through, but it was just just drove.
So what did you do in a sandstorm if you were driving? You just stop and wait it out?
No, we did stop, refuel, and then we ended up taking a break. I think I got a little nap in there, but a lot of the time it was just try to not lose the truck in front of you.
So the storm would come and you just keep driving through it.
We kept going.
That's old school. I don't think they would do that today, but I don't know. So you're there for 2 months, and then you get orders to go back to Benning?
Yes. Yeah. So the unit was sent back. They needed people to stay back and do other things. So I volunteered because, most of those guys that I'm around had been there for 9 months. So my unit left. The next day or 2 days later, they decided that they didn't need me, and they put me on a plane home with somebody else.
So at this time you weren't married yet?
I was married.
You were married. Okay, so let's back up. So where did you meet your wife? Who was your wife?
My first wife.
What year was that?
Rita. I met her when I was going through the adult education program there here at Harry Hill in South Lansing. And then we got married when I was at Fort Hood.
Okay.
Found out she was pregnant, and it was a couple weeks later when I got my levy notice to go to Korea. So my daughter was born when I was up on the Z.
Okay, so
in January of 1990.
For those listening, that means that when you go to Korea, you don't family members don't go with you.
That is correct. It is unaccompanied tour.
Unaccompanied tour. Okay, so you're in Fort Benning. You go away for 2 months, and you come back, and I'm sure your wife is happy to see you at that point.
There was some issues. We had some marital issues, but I think after I got back, we started to work on resolving those. Okay. So,
yeah. So, was your how many kids did you have at that time? Just still.
So, my son Brandon was born January 27th of 91. So. I did not see him until I got back from Desert Storm.
Oh, okay.
He was born a couple days before he shipped out.
Okay, so it's your first time seeing Brandon, and
when I got back, yes, that's correct.
How did that feel when you got to see him?
It was interesting. Like I said, we had some marital issues we were working through. So, but it was good. It was good to be home, see my kids.
Okay. Yeah. So you're at Fort Benning, and what howitzer were you on there?
109.
109 still?
Yeah, so we're on 109er8s in Korea. So I went from 109s to 109er8s to 109s again.
Okay. How did you like the 109er8?
There's pluses and minuses, right? I mean, the 109er8 is not covered, so you're exposed to the elements, but then it has a lot less maintenance to it. So
no tracks.
There's plus and minuses. I was good with either system.
Okay, so 109, 109er8, 109, and so how long were you at Fort Benning?
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
And
my third son was born there.
Your third son?
Yes. Was
born there. So at this point, you have
my third child, my youngest son.
Okay, 3 kids, and yes. What do you remember from your Fort Benning tour the most?
Politics. I mean, it was a good tour. You know, I had kids, got them settled. We were finally, not moving.
This is 1989?
No. So we got back from Desert Storm in March of 91.
91. Okay.
Yeah, so it was about the summer, sometime in the summer when everything settled. I got housing on post. I was still in the service battery. I worked my way up to the admin position where I was basically the clerk ordering all the battalion ammo. From there, I became, I was detailed out one time to be the command sergeant major's driver, and then kind of never left that until I got promoted to E5. Then I went back down to the gun section.
Okay.
So I went from service battery to headquarters battery to Bravo battery while I was at Fort Benning.
Okay. And that was so you made E5.
Yes.
And did that put you at gunner? Did it put you at ammo team chief or
ammo team chief?
Ammo team chief. So
we had the fast V's So it was the first time I got to work with a fast V, and I learned that.
I haven't heard that name in a really long time.
It's been a while.
So you went, you worked on the Fast V, and when did you leave Fort Benning? What year?
94.
94.
Yep. It was I think it was after Thanksgiving. Because literally my second tour of Korea was like 95, the entire year of 95. So
okay, so you went on your second tour to Korea, and were they still 109 when you got back
to Korea? So it was on
19 or 8. Sorry.
So during that time frame, the Army pulled the brigade that had the Z mission out and sent them to Fort Lewis, Washington. So I went to Camp Casey, 1st and 15th, which was the 109 battalion.
109. Okay, so no 19 or 8, just 109. And when you got there, were you still an ammo team chief, or were you?
No, I was made gunner, which lasted. So I got there, I don't know, like I said, December. I think we went to the field in February. So I did one exercise as a gunner, and then I think by the next month I was made a gun chief. I was the only E5 gun chief in the battery. Only E5 section chief. So out of either FTCs or was the only lowest ranking chief in the battery.
Okay. Yeah, if you make E5 as section chief, that's a pretty good thing. But when you were a gunner, so the last time I was on a gun was probably 2019, and it's so mechanized now. Like it's like a joystick, but back then you had to.
Yeah, that was old school. We didn't have any of the new gadgets.
You had to turn it yourself and get there yourself.
Absolutely.
And the faster you turn, the faster you got on target.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the 109's got hydraulics, right? So it's the 19 or 8s that's all manual crank, but the 109's got a hydraulic crank, so you just got to yank on a toggle. And
that's a big tube to push around. Yeah. So you made gun chief, your E5 gun chief, and how many guys, like how did that feel when you got promoted to that?
It was cool. We were a young section. I think my gunner was a brand new buck sergeant, so there's only just 2 of us, and everybody else was E4 and below. So my ammo team chief was an E4, and also when you're deployed to Korea, they give you, you get 1 to 2 Katusas, which is our augmentees from the Korean Army. So I had a couple Katusas and, a bunch of young soldiers.
So did these Katusas, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, did they speak like fluent English or?
They spoke English, sometimes not fluent. If you get the Katusa program, they do their entire military obligation as a Katusa. So the ones that have been around for a couple of years spoke decent English. The privates, they were a little shy and didn't weren't confident in it.
Yeah. So. Okay. So as far as so you had that many soldiers and what how many did you guys go to the field a lot or
not a whole lot?
Just man that
I think at the time there was fiscal issues.
Okay.
Within the Army.
Who's president at this time?
I don't even remember. That was 95.
Is that Clinton? I don't even remember. I'm terrible. I don't for not remembering, but I always heard stories about Korea, going to the field in Korea, and there was some lady who would come out there.
Ajma, yes.
What was it?
Ajma. Yeah.
So how do you spell that?
I have no idea.
Okay. What did she bring when she came out?
just a truckload of food, right? I mean, she'd cook noodles, and you can get moon pies and sodas and, that kind of stuff. So
Come right to your firing point out in the field.
she would, most of the time, she'd beat you to the firing point.
So I always heard about her, and I always heard that
those are true stories. So, and then she kept a ledger, and if you didn't have money to pay, and then she would be on the first sergeant's desk come payday, and you would have to come see the first sergeant to pay your field debt.
That's fine. But that's pretty common back then.
Absolutely, yes.
To have, I know, like before you would leave anywhere, you'd have to. If you owed someone something, then you would have to pay it.
Yes, no, absolutely.
It would come right out of your paycheck. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense if they bought some food or pokey bait in the field, that would happen. So the other thing I heard was that they had a dog, like not factory, but a dog place where all these dogs and cats were, and that they would eat cat and dog there. So,
no, absolutely. So,
did you have cats or dogs when you were there?
My first tour, I'm blanking. What's the name? My first tour, what was the name of the base I was at? But it was a small base. It was up on the Z. There was a battalion, I think a company of engineers, platoon MPs. So you could walk around it, the entire base in 10 minutes. But right outside, I think it was a senior NCO, there was a dog farm. Big dogs in little cages. And they would bark all night.
Because they knew they were going to get eaten. But, yes, I felt like I had to ask about that.
Pelham, yeah.
What was it?
Camp Pelham.
Camp Pelham.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yep. So I do remember that. Yeah. And then the only dogs that you ever saw running around were small, the small, tiny dogs. You never saw any big dogs running the streets.
And is there, so did you have dog when you were there?
Not to my knowledge, but it's possible.
You might have had it, but just didn't know it.
Yeah. I mean, there's you go get stuffed peppers off the street corner or something. I don't know what's in those damn things. So, it's just. I mean, I never intentionally went out and ordered some.
Can I get the dog?
Kegogis, but it's possible.
All right, so you're in South Korea or Korea Camp.
Casey's
Camp Casey, and from there, what year did you end up leaving there?
So, December of 95. So, like I said, I was basically there the entire year of 1995.
Okay, and was there anybody while you were there that you remember, like?
Oh yeah, like you mentioned earlier, Tom McAuliffe. Tom and I. So the way the barracks are set up, we had two rooms or two-man room with a bathroom connected in another two-man room. So basically, I shared a latrine with McAuliffe for half that tour. So, or part of that tour anyway. So he was the first sergeant's driver.
Okay, I can see him as a first sergeant's driver.
Yeah.
And this is, I know you, like you said earlier today, that you talk to him like once a month. I think I do too. So yeah, there was him, and was there anyone else that you remember?
Let's take a quick break.
Veterans Archives is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we rely on donations from our listeners. If you are enjoying these stories and would like to support our continued efforts, please go to www.veteransarchives.org and select the donate button. Thank you.
Sergeant Pringle was my roommate for a short bit. I haven't talked to him since Korea, but I just, because he was a cowboy, big belt buckle, big cowboy hat type of dude, weird chew eating. So I do remember that cat, but like I said, I haven't talked or been in contact with him since.
Okay.
Since then.
And so you leave Camp Casey, and what is your next destination?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And are you 82nd Airborne?
No,
Or?
I was the Airborne Corps Artillery. It's Corps Artillery.
Okay. And did that take you back to 109 or?
198s.
198s.
Yeah, 3rd Battalion, 321st Field Artillery. So we were the basically the general support for the division.
Okay. And by this time, are you still married, 3 kids?
No. So the second tour, Korea, basically finished off my marriage. So that was pretty much the end of it. So come back and started the divorce process. So my wife and kids have moved back to Michigan and living here in Lansing. So at that point.
Okay. So you go to Bragg and you're just by yourself at this point?
Yeah, we lived in the barracks and actually became the barracks NCOIC. The senior dude that's in the barracks.
Okay. And when you showed up, were you a section chief, E6?
No, I went from being a section chief to an ammo team chief working for 2 other E5s.
Oh. I wouldn't have liked that. So you get there, you're in a 109 or 8. You're back to ammo team chief. You're living in the barracks as the NCOIC. And is there anything significant in this time, like in this tour, that you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up, not only did I got divorced, but after, I don't know how long it was, but one of the gunners, I think it was in 4th section, 3rd, I don't know. One of the gunners ETS'd out, so I got moved to 8th section. Our platoon, this would have been 1996. Our platoon was selected to go to 29 Palms,
California.
We became we were attached to the 3rd of the 11th Marines,
which is not, that's a deserted base.
What's that?
Isn't that a deserted base now? The Marine Corps works there or something like that?
That's the Marine Corps base.
Was it then? Or?
Yes, it's
okay.
Marine Corps base. It's kind of like, I'm assuming they use it like we do the National Training Center in Fort Irwin. But 29 Palms is Marine Corps base. We were attached to the 3rd of the 11th Marines.
Okay.
And we put 2 prototype howitzers through a bunch of testing that basically brought us after, the 777. So that we developed the new generation of 2 howitzer there.
Okay.
Or we put a couple prototypes through the paces for the
777,
which is
what
that 777 came out of that program. Yes.
Okay, they use today.
So yeah, we spent.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. We spent 2 months at Fort Irwin, firing tons of rounds, smurf rounds. They were inert rounds, but we don't. It doesn't matter to us because they all go out the tube the same way. And then the last month. What's the Marine Corps base out there in California? Where they do the
San Diego?
where they do their basic training. They sent us there for a month.
Is that Camp Lejeune?
I think Lejeune. No, Lejeune's on the east side. Was it Coronado? No.
Not Coronado. Coronado's Navy. Well, the Marine Corps base.
Yeah,
San Diego.
it's all in the same area. But yeah, so we went there for a month. Basically, most of that was for the Marine Corps type of stuff. They were putting testing the, how do you get the howitzers on and off ships and those kind of things. So yeah, I spent 3 months out there. That was pretty.
Was it an
cool.
FSS fast sea ship?
I didn't get to do any of that. That was all. So the way they had 2 prototype howitzers. We split up our platoon into 2 gun sections, and basically they did the same thing. So we had 1 Army gun section, 1 Marine Corps gun section on one howitzer and one on the other howitzer. And so they would run the test with Marines. The Marines would come off the gun. They would run the same test with the Army crews.
Okay.
And then they'd compile all that data.
Okay, that's probably a lot of data.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was, I think, my platoon sergeant XO had to go somewhere after we got back for a few weeks.
Just to put it all together, yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Aberdeen Proving Grounds or someplace. But they had to go, they went TDY for a couple weeks as part of all that data collection stuff.
Okay. So you're at Fort Bragg, or you're at in California, and then from there, where did you go?
Yeah. So that when the test was over, I think it was right around Thanksgiving time is when then we returned to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So I need to take a leak.
So let's back up on the 29 Palm stuff. There's some other things you said you wanted to mention.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite stories from that. So my gun chief, my officer section chief, had to go on emergency leave. So when we went in, and we had a 3-week train up program. And so when they pulled the chief off, he made me chief. And that was some political crap or whatever. So chief was gone, and I was the acting section chief. But when he started to go into the actual testing portion, they wanted an E6 there. So they brought in Staff Sergeant Coca, who was a Marine Corps gun chief that he ended up they pulled off, but he came back in time. So this is where I kind of blew a gasket. But, for the looks and purpose of the test program, Sergeant Coca was a gun chief, but I absolutely would not let him run anything. So, because I was not going to let a Marine Corps, because I had basically 2 gun sections combined. So I had like 13, 14 soldiers, Army soldiers. I was not going to let a Marine Corps chief. So I basically told him, you can, say fire, but that's all I'm going to let you do. This is my goddamn gun section. I'm going to run it. So
good for you. Way to stand your ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the things. And Gunny Hocker, he was the Marine Corps platoon sergeant. There's their smoke, and he would tell me every day. He goes, Sergeant Gregory, you should join the Marine Corps. Sergeant Gregory, you'd make a great Marine. Nope, no, not me, Gunny.
Nope, not me.
Yeah, that was a couple of my favorite stories about that.
Good story. Thanks for sharing. So you go back to Fort Benning. In Fort Benning, the year...
Bragg. We're going back to Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, sorry. You go back to Fort Bragg, and the year is...
That 96. So
96.
Now we're pushing Christmas of 96. So or that's right around Thanksgiving of 96 or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so 1996, and your ETS is when?
September of 97.
September of 97. So you have 2 years, about a year. And
yeah.
Then,
so at that point, I'm almost a year, because I got to Bragg in January. So I'm at 11 months. But only have 8 months left, something like that. Because with my leave, but a little leave saved up.
Okay.
I think I got home in August.
So at this point, you're 97. This would put you at how many years of active duty at this point?
So I got the hood in January of 87. So in January 97, that was 10 years.
Okay.
And then, so I was a little over 10 and a half years active duty when I ETS'd.
And from Fort Bragg, your ETS is 97.
It's September of 97, that's correct.
Are you getting out and going guard, or you?
So, yes, I'm getting out. for the simple fact that my kids were in Michigan and seeing them once a year was not going to work.
I agree.
Buddy of mine, Matt Davis, we were PFCs together in the 4th 20th on the same section. When they closed with the realignment and closed the 4th to 20th, a lot of those guys went down the street to the 119th Field Artillery. Matt and I stayed good friends throughout while I was gone, so I had been talking to him, and he's told me that there was room for me in the 119th. So as I started my transition, the active duty, they've got transition coordinators or recruiters or whatever. So that individual helped me basically just transition from active duty into the 119th Field Artillery in Lansing.
Okay. So did you re-enlist for the Guard right at
Yes,
Bragg?
that's the whole transition. It was so before I even left Fort Bragg, I had enlisted into the 119th. So
into it. So when you left there, did you enlist into a section chief slot?
So
I know sometimes that can be a.
So when I left, I was an E5 promotable when I left active duty. Still technically not, my gun chief time was in Korea. I had never technically been assigned a gun chief there. I do remember when I got to Marshall Street Armory, my first drill, I was told that I was going to teach another E5 how to be a gun chief, that I was going to be his gunner. So I walked around with his gun chief for the morning. At lunchtime, I went into the AGR's office and just said, when do I get my own gun section? Because this is not going to work. The next month, I had my own gun section.
Good for you. Good for standing up.
And then, so that would have been October, November, and by February of 98, I got made promoted to E6 Staff Sergeant.
Okay. So you're at, so this is like 98-ish.
Yeah, well, that was 97. That was October of 97.
Okay.
Because I think 27 September was my ATS date. So October would have been my first drill. That morning, I walked around with that chief that I was told I was going to teach. And then I went in at lunch and check-fired that decision. I got reassigned as the howitzer section chief.
Okay, so you're at Marshall Street Armory.
Marshall Street Armory and Alpha Battery.
So was there three guns there, or because I remember
there were more than that.
So the whole
this is a whole battery.
Whole battery was there. Okay,
this is before the detachment split things up. So 6 guns maybe. Yeah, I think there were 6 gun sections.
And was the office on the bottom floor, basement?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so 6 was, and these were 109 SP?
Yes.
Okay, so when you get there, you become a section chief, and anything significant, anyone who was significant?
Well, I think sometime, I don't remember the month, but sometime in 98, I walk in to drill, and Tom McAuliffe is sitting in the orderly room. So I look at Sergeant Zettel, who's our Renacencio, and I said, put him in my gun section. Because I had no idea, because Tom always said he was from Virginia. His dad was active duty. But apparently his dad and his parents retired to Michigan. And so he followed them and enrolled at Michigan State and joined the Guard. So, yeah.
So Tom McAuliffe
was in my gun section, yes.
Okay. And where was Matt Davis at this time? Was he?
I believe Matt was in Charlie Battery. Might have been Bravo. Again, this is before, so I can't remember if he was in Charlotte or Albion.
Oh, Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're there, there's 6 guns, you're section chief. And how long are you a gun chief before you're promoted?
I think I did the 1898. I believe I did the 1899. 2000, I was scheduled to, but in 2000, there were several of us that went to Phase 1 ANOC in the early part of the summer. I believe AT was in August, so Phase 2 was scheduled in August. Out of all of like 9 of us that went, I was the only one that didn't get into Phase 2, but with
ANOC was for E7. E7, okay.
But that being said, because there was a belief I was going to be in the class, I was removed from the gun section because of all the train up and that needs to be done before AT. So I went to AT in 2000, shadowing the gunnery sergeant. So worked with the gunnery sergeant at AT. And then I believe it was...
In Grayling, Michigan.
In Grayling.
Okay.
Yep, Camp Grayling. And I believe coming out of that, I think it was October or November of that year, I was promoted to Sergeant First Class.
Okay. And this was what year?
2000.
2000. Okay. So you're the gunnery sergeant, and at that point, how many people do you have underneath you?
Well, the gunnery sergeant doesn't have anybody underneath him. So a gunnery sergeant is an assistant platoon sergeant.
Okay. I never looked at it that way. But.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's people that work with the gunnery sergeant that are assigned to gun crews, but the gunnery sergeant is never specifically responsible for anybody.
Okay. So you don't have to write any in the COERs.
Don't have to write any.
But you get to hold the rank. So
yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win situation.
Well, there's a lot of responsibility in a position, but also a lot of flexibility as well.
Okay. So a gunnery sergeant, can you tell me a little bit of the main duties of a gunnery sergeant?
So the gunnery, he's assistant platoon sergeant. So he'll assist the platoon sergeant with administrative or whatever duties that need to be done when we're not on mission. When we're on mission, he's basically the recon sergeant. So he goes out and identifies possible firing points and areas of approach and those kinds of things, and will help set up those firing points when it's time to move into them.
Okay, and you did it in Grayling, and you did it for 6 guns and a 109, and I remember when I met you, you were smoke.
So that was again that AT. I was shadowing the gunnery sergeant. Sergeant First Class Landy was a gunnery sergeant. I was just kind of his shadow learning. Once I got promoted in the fall, I was named gunnery sergeant, and then the next spring we rotated to National Training Center for our annual training. So I performed the gunnery sergeant duties there. My only problem is we had no, because we were out 4, we had no live fire going on. So I never got to fire a live round as a gunnery sergeant. Because as soon as we got back from National Training Center, they made me the platoon sergeant.
Which was smoke.
Which is smoke, yes.
Okay. And what are the main duties of smoke? We say smoke in artillery because why do they call it smoke and not platoon sergeant?
Well, I mean, the position is a platoon sergeant. I have never been able to truly figure out where the origins of the word smoke comes from, so I kind of made one up. So I just tell everybody that, when we fire rounds and the smoke permeates the firing point. The smoke is everywhere, especially when you're firing a lot of rounds. And that's basically the platoon sergeant's job, is to be everywhere. And that's what the smoke does. He's everywhere. He's everything for a gun line.
Okay. Well, I really like that definition. And so you're smoke, and then How long are you smoke for?
Technically, almost 11 years.
11 years.
10 years.
10 years.
So, that being said, because if you go on deployment with outside the battalion's got to keep you in position, in a line position. So, I spent 2 years on Title 10 orders at Walter Reed Army Medical Center.
But prior to that, you went to Cuba.
Oh, prior to that, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're talking. Oh, so now yeah. So, by the time we get to Cuba in 2004, I'd been a smoke for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you were in Cuba, what did you do in Cuba?
So basically, the platoon, we took care of those that were assigned to the facility.
Okay.
We had over 600 people assigned, I guess. Yeah. I guess
somewhere in that.
We're babysitting terrorists. That's what we're doing.
Yep. Babysitting alleged terrorists and detainees. And, yep. So you're down there, you're smoke. I remember we still called you smoke, even though it wasn't artillery. So is there anything that you remember from that tour that?
Well, I do remember that, because we were a bridging mission. So we went in there and they divided us up platoons to different MP companies. And then when the MP company rotated out, we would stay and help ease the transition to new MP companies. So when we got there, my platoon was attached to 258 MP company. They were active duty out of Fort Polk.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be the only active duty MP out of the 6 that was there. But I do remember somewhere in that process that they were like, after we integrated and worked with their soldiers and they got to know everybody, their soldiers were like, they realized that I wasn't the only smoke on the island. Mm-hmm. We got 6 platoons. That would be 6 smokes, but they all thought I was the only one. So,
yeah, I remember that as like when we got there, it was like just from my perspective, it wasn't. I'm glad that we got that unit because I thought they were pretty good, and I thought
they were.
We worked pretty well with them.
And I think I think part of the reason I don't know if it's true or not, but I like to think it is my active duty experience probably helped that. I think my experience with the active duties which was more than any of the other platoon sergeants that were on this mission. So that was probably helped the transition of both the active duty unit and our platoon.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. So you're in Cuba, and I believe we left around in Halloween. We left in October to go back to Fort Dix, and then we got home on Halloween night, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
2004.
Sergeant Major Davis had to fight a lot of politics to get us home in time to vote. I do remember that he won that battle. So, but that was our original time frame was putting us home day after 2 of I don't know, it was November 3rd that year was with the voting day. So he fought the battle and got us home before voting day.
Yep. So from there you come back to Michigan, and what unit do you go back to? Alpha.
So yeah, and I don't know if so I had transitioned out of Alpha Battery. So we were in March of 2003. And I was sent down to Charlie Battery.
Albion.
And actually it was in Charlotte.
Yep.
Charlotte.
And
So
Albion.
it was the dead. It was the dead in Charlotte. That being said, when it was time to go on the Guantanamo mission, my platoon that was assigned to me was mostly Alpha Battery guys.
Mm-hmm.
So originally in the train up portion, did have a section of Fort observers out of HHB. But once we saw the makeup of how we needed to split to the companies, we split that Fort observer section in two and sent them to other platoons to round out that makeup that needed to happen. So it was basically even though I was a Charlie battery, but I had spent 6 years in an Alpha battery, so still kind of an Alpha battery guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I got the Alpha battery platoon, I guess.
Yeah. And I remember, you're an LBN or Charlie company or battery. For how long were you in Charlie company?
So that was March of 2003. By the time we got back to, or after the Gitmo deployment, they closed the debt. So the entire battery had moved, instead of having the debt in Charlotte, the entire battery moved to Albion. And I was there until September of 2008 when I got on tour duty and went to Walter Reed Army Medical Center with the Warrior Transition Brigade. I spent 2 years there as a operation sergeant in the 3 section for the Warrior Transition Brigade, helping wounded warriors coming back from with their injuries.
So how did you? That's a pretty impactful mission.
Yes.
I'm sure it was enjoyable, but also hard at times.
So initially I was supposed to go down as to be one of the platoon sergeants, and I was a little disappointed I didn't. So I did not get to work with the soldiers every day. But there was a couple of times we put on a orientation once a month, which my section handled. So I got to see them, but never really was able to develop any relationships with any of the warrior soldiers because I was up in the operations section.
Okay. And at this time, are you remarried?
Yes.
Okay.
So was divorced there at Fort Bragg, got home in the fall of 96. Was that right? Yep. 97, fall of 97. Got home in fall of 97, that's correct. And then met my wife met her in January of 98, and we ended up getting married in October of 98.
Okay, so October 98.
Bought our house in July of 98. So basically this had my house 25 years this month.
Okay. And did you guys, so at this point you had 3 kids. Did you end up having?
And her 2 kids. She had two boys, older boys from a previous marriage. So I was raising 5.
So
5
5
in the
kids.
household. Yes.
Okay. So okay. So you're at Walter Reed, and are they still in Michigan, or did they go down with you?
No, they're still in Michigan. They would come down. So the 2 older boys, I think, were out of the house by then. And I think by the time I got back, they were all out of the house. So there were, my children were teenagers, high school-ish. I think when I went. So yeah, left in 2008. They would come down to visit. It was a easy, quick flight, from Walter Reed right by Ronald Reagan or Baltimore Airport. Is both of them are really close. So, or even I think out of the 3, Dulles, which is not too far away, but it's probably the longest of the 3. So they had 3 major airports that we could fly in and out of real quickly.
Okay. And as far as so at this point you leave Walter Reed, and at this point you're about 13 years of active duty ish. Does that sound right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Probably somewhere in that time frame.
Okay.
But so at the time at Walter Reed, the 119th is being tasked to deploy. And so during that last stages, I'm working with the 119th, but they ended up pulling my orders early. I'd like to say I was on the blacklist. A lot of the people there in the hierarchy of the 119th were not fans of Sergeant Gregory. So they ended up putting my orders early, which I was highly upset about. But that left me about a month without a paycheck. Basically, is the end deal on that. And then we got activated and deployed to Kuwait. There in the fall of 2010.
Fall of 2010.
Yeah. We sent us to McCoy for pre-mob training. We were there for a while.
Okay. And who were you? Were you with Charlie Company still, or?
Yeah, Charlie Battery.
Okay, Charlie. Sorry, I keep saying company. I know I switched out artillery in 2010, so I don't say battery anymore.
And actually, on that deployment, they designated as companies, but they refused to call us as companies, so it was always Charlie Battery.
Okay. And so you're on the deployment.
I'm on the deployment as a platoon sergeant.
Is there anything significant about that tour? Anybody you worked with?
So Lieutenant Sands was my platoon leader. So it was the first time I got to work with him. Eric Willoughby, he was the third platoon sergeant. He has actually come from the 1/8 Deuce, and most of his guys are 182nd guys. But he became a very good friend of mine. Developed that relationship on that tour. And I tell the people that he made me laugh every day and got me through that deployment. So he was a great guy. And then but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people in not just the battery, but throughout the battalion that we got to work with, and that I'm still in contact with today. So
okay, and after the deployment, you come back. What year is it?
So while we're deployed, I applied for first sergeant position in 63rd Brigade, HHC, Headquarters Company, 63rd Brigade. Because, again, I was on the blacklist. I had tried several times to get first sergeant positions in 119th and realized that, due to politics, that it was not going to happen. So I applied outside the battalion, and it was accepted. In 2 weeks before we redeployed, I got promoted to E8. I got master sergeant. So coming back from that deployment, which was October, maybe, like when we got home, October. Then November, I was able to transition 98 to a first sergeant position. And then December of that year is when I reported to HHC 63rd Brigade.
Okay, so you go to 63rd Brigade, and 63rd Brigade is in Grand Rapids?
Yes, it's
okay.
at Grand Valley Armory.
Armory.
At the time it was. It was at the Grand Valley Armory, yes.
Okay, and so you're the first sergeant of 63rd Brigade?
Correct.
And about how many people do you have in your command?
One less than I had in my platoon on deployment.
What?
I had like 29.
So the difference between a brigade and a battery, like, was there any significant, like any big things that you notice about working in a gun line?
Totally different because this is it's a TDA unit, right? So they don't have any vehicles. I don't have any. And their only real mission is kind of managing other units. So, out of the basically platoon-sized company element that I had, the majority of them were full-time in one capacity or other. They were AGRs or they were technicians in one capacity or another. So, and most of them were senior. I had as a first sergeant, I didn't have a whole lot of people that were actually in rank junior to me in that company.
So E7 and below is basically your privates.
Yeah, we may have had 4 or 5 E4 and below that were assigned to the unit. The rest of it was, like I said, E7 and above.
Yeah, so
it was very staff officer heavy.
So big change.
For them.
So you're there, you're a first sergeant. How long are you a first sergeant for?
I roughly there just over, I think it was about 26 months. Because on my civilian job, I worked at CFMO, which is Construction Facility Management Office that handles all the buildings for the National Guard. So I was on my civilian job. I was part of the process of buying in the new armory, or at least my office was, and developing into an armory. So the day I actually left HHC was the day that they moved into the Belmont Armory, and that was north of Grand Rapids. So,
so they're not on 44th in Wyoming anymore.
No, they are not. That HHC is not. So in Belmont, HHC and the band moved into the Belmont Armory.
Okay.
But I was, due to openings in 119th, the brigade sergeant major reassigned me to Charlie Battery 119 Field Artillery. So I went down to Charlie Battery as a first sergeant.
Okay, which is where you wanted to be anyways. Right?
Which is where I wanted to be anyways.
Okay, so you're back on the gun line, you're a first sergeant, and you're back to your roots, and
yes,
being on the gun line is what you know. And was it a super easy transition back?
I mean, it was, but it was we jumped right in. My first drill back was we were airlifting up in Grayling, and it was minus 30 degrees. So that was
snow on the ground.
I mean, as far as personnel wise, everybody knew me, but it was I hit the ground running. And then that summer we had a big XETC, I think was the exercise. So where the brigade out of New Hampshire was coming in, and so yeah, it was a year on the move.
Well, so I remember, like you said, you were airlifted and sling loaded and all that stuff up there.
Yeah.
So sling loaded and howitzer, that was one of the. As a recruiter, I actually used that picture.
Yeah, I'm sure that awesome picture still gets used today.
Yeah, it was the best pic. I mean, I'm artillery, so
yes.
Obviously I'm going to choose that. But it was an awesome picture. So you're there. You're the first sergeant. And how long are you the first sergeant in Charlie Battery?
11 months, I believe.
And who was your commander then?
Pete Mason, who's now 119th Battalion commander.
Okay. And who was your AGR staff?
Jimmy Robbins, who's now the group command sergeant major. Who else did I have? I'm blanking.
Was Burns? No, Burns would have been gone, right?
Yeah, Burns wasn't there. Yeah, I'm blanking on my supply daddy.
Was Betts there?
I don't think he was there. Was he there? Yeah. I don't know if he was there as AGR at that point or not. I'm kind of thinking he was AGR afterwards.
Yeah, he could have been. I was trying to think. I remember Robbins. I see Robbins every now and then. But.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're there.
Yeah, for a hot and heavy year, like I said, it was, like I said, jumped in right into sling load ops. AT was a big XETC thing in the summer. And we already talked about my dad died that fall. Because what was really cool about my dad, he had pinned every NCO rank I had on me. Mm-hmm. And so he died in November 2014. In December of 2014, I applied for the CSM position of the 182nd Field Artillery, who was getting ready to deploy, and was awarded that. So I was promoted to Command Sergeant Major in January of 2017.
And that was the first
or
time.
15.
First time your dad wasn't able to pin it on.
That was the first rank my dad did not pin on me. Correct.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do. So you're the CSM of 182nd.
Correct.
And
getting ready to mob.
And getting ready to mob.
Go down range, yes.
And where's your, like, where'd you report to?
This is Olympia Army in Detroit, close to downtown Detroit.
Okay. Now, did that used to be a hockey rink?
It was built on top of where the hockey rink was.
Okay. So
but yes, that location used to be a hockey rink. That is correct, where the Red Wings used to play back in the day.
Yep. And it's still there. Like, I know we still have people.
Yes, people at the Armory. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So you get to Detroit. Is it your first time drilling in Detroit?
That would have been, I think, January of 15 or 15 would have been my first drill there. Yeah.
Okay, and so you get there as a CSM, and you're getting ready to mob. And what happens when you get there? Like, what do you remember? And
so it's it's a rocket battalion. I've been on cannons up to that point for almost 30 years. So it's a totally different. So it's a big learning phase for me because I don't know if I'm getting too far away from that. It's a big learning phase for me because A, I don't know anybody, and B, I don't know exactly how they operate. So I have to sit back and kind of take it all in and learn.
So it was a huge learning curve for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And who's your battalion commander?
It was Ed Colito, Colonel Ed Colito.
Ed Colito?
Yes.
So did you go on the gun line and like just try to figure it out? But you're mobbing, so you're mobbing. Are you mobbing to do that job, or are you mobbing?
Well, yeah, and I think part of the reason I was selected because I know there was applicants that didn't or wouldn't apply, people that wanted to be CSM but wouldn't apply just because they were mobbing, right? So when I went through the board, there was only 3 applicants. I was one of 3 applicants, and I was the only one that had an artillery background. And so I chalked part of that up to, timing on my part. It was getting CSM after only three years as a first sergeant was because nobody wanted to deploy. Because there were probably more people. There were people out there that had more experience or a bigger resume than I did, but I'm going after it, and they want to stay home with mama.
Well, at this point, you've deployed, and this would be a couple of deployments now that would bring your pension age down, right?
Yes. So anything after 2008. So my time in Walter Reed counted. The 10, so the 2 years, then 10, 11. So that was 36 months there, basically, or close to 36 months. So yes, that was dropping my retirement age significantly.
Yeah, that's huge. So you mob, and where do you guys head to?
Fort Bliss, Texas.
Fort Bliss, Texas, and you're there for 30, 40 days?
Yeah, something. I don't exactly remember. 3 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And from Fort Bliss, where do you head to after that?
So,
and what's your mission?
We were basically UAE. So, when it was all said and done, I had people, 8 locations, 4 different countries. But our main base was at an Emirati Air Base just outside Dubai.
Dubai?
Yeah, in the United Emirates. But we sent a battery up to Jordan, so we had a full-time presence at an air base in Jordan, and then we had small teams that were in like Kuwait, helping transition stuff. And then a few months into that, we were tasked to send a firing platoon to Iraq. So we sent a platoon there, and they went and killed some bad guys.
Okay. So you're in like quite a few different locations.
Yes. So we're based out based at the air base in UAE outside of Dubai, but I'm flying up to Jordan at least once a month with the boss and I. And I think Kuwait a couple times type of thing. Due to the things going on, they wouldn't let the boss and I go to Iraq but we were able to send 3 and a couple and on different occasions get a staff officer over in there to make sure that our platoon was being taken care of.
So
they were on a firing base taking care of business.
Okay.
So
I like that. And so you're there for about
9 months.
9 months?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you come home, and what year is that?
So that was let me see, 16. That's 16. But the really cool part of that is the battalion that replaced us was the same battalion that I left out of Fort Bragg. 3rd Battalion, 321st Field Artillery, which has since transitions from 198s to HIMARS. But it was the battalion that I left Fort Bragg is the one that replaced us on that deployment.
So full circle.
Yeah.
Get to see.
Yeah, kind of full circle stuff.
Now, I'm sure was there anybody there that you knew, or
No. I mean, that had been
20 years.
20 years, yes.
Yeah.
So,
yes, that's cool.
but during that transition, the sergeant major and colonel thought it was pretty cool that I'd served in their battalion at one point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There
give you
was
some common ground.
There was a targeting warrant with brigade. So when we first got there, I'm blanking on it. The Corps Artillery Brigade out of Bragg was the one in charge. There was a targeting warrant that I had met before as an E7, who had actually worked for First Sergeant Briscoe. First Sergeant Briscoe was the Sergeant Briscoe gun chief that I had when I first reported to Bragg. So there was a little bit of knowing people from the guard to Army transition. That was kind of cool. But the chief had run into him and then ran into him again in Jordan. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you come back and are you still in six?
So come back and during that time we had the command climate surveys and they didn't fare well, but we rocked out the mission. We took care of business. We made great contacts. Command climate surveys weren't great, so
they never are in deployment. I don't think.
No, they never are. But they wanted to fire, so they got rid of the top. Well, tried to get rid of the top 4. My boss got promoted. The XO and 3 got sent someplace else, and I remember a few months afterwards, I had a new boss come in, and Chronicle Cooper. But we were up at Grantling, and the brand new brigade CSM pulls me aside, and he ain't been the brigade CSM for 2 months. So he doesn't know me from Adam. And I still remember him saying, "We don't think you're the future of the deuce." So we had a 20-minute, 30-minute conversation about, okay, but if I'm not the future, you got to tell me what I did wrong. They couldn't tell me anything. Somehow I was on the blacklist again. But I didn't get fired at that point. So I survived that and stayed in the deuce for another year and a half or so, I guess, 2 years.
So yeah, I feel like at a certain rank, you just start dealing with more politics.
Oh, that's third rocker. You start with 2 rockers, but once you get the third rocker, once you become an E8, it'd be word to God politics, brother.
Yeah, even more so.
That E7 to E8 is probably the biggest transition I tell anybody that you're going to find.
Yeah, well, it's too bad it's like that. And
yeah.
The good thing is you're retired, so you don't have to deal with it anymore.
No.
So,
I had fun when I was dealing with it.
Yeah. So you're there. You're in 1-8 deuce for another year and a half, and then from there, where do you go?
So let me see what years that was. I'm trying to think. Was it 19? I think it was 19. I got selected to be the command sergeant major of the 272nd Regional Support Group. Yeah, I believe that was because Sergeant Major Bennett, who's a good friend of mine from Alpha Battery back in the days, we grew up at E6 together. He got selected to be the Army Guard CSM, so I moved into his position there at the group.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when he was CSM. So you're at group 272nd group.
Yep.
And who's your battalion commander at that point?
Well, it's group commander. It's a group, but it's
Group
brigade
commander,
level. It's
sorry.
a brigade level, but it's a group, right? So technically, the Michigan Army National Guard only has one brigade, right? Everything else is you got a group, you got a troop command, but it's all brigade level commands.
Okay. Who's your group commander?
Colonel Scott Myers.
Colonel Scott Myers, who's also a 119th guy.
Yes, he was a battalion commander when I was first sergeant, and he was the battalion XO on the 1011 deployment. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was probably a good transition for common ground with someone that you.
And most of them have been. So when I went to 63rd, the month after I got there, Colonel Schlegel and Sergeant Major Arrington took over the brigade. They were my battalion commander and Sergeant Major on deployment. Now they're up with me. We get back and we're all working together up at GVA. So other than, like I said, other than going to the 1-8 deuce, most of my transition is smooth because I knew people.
Mm-hmm. So while you're there, is there anything significant?
Nothing really major. I mean, part of the group headquarters was deployed when I got there, just a small section of it. So when I got there, we didn't have all our personnel. And I think was it during, or maybe it was right before I took over up there, the artillery battalions were moved from under the 63rd to the group. So it was kind of cool that as a brigade level CSM, I have 2 artillery battalions as an artilleryman.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have. And so you have Scott Myers, Colonel Myers is your group commander, and then
we got Chuck Hahn, who is the 119th CSM, but he's also AGR. He's my operations sergeant major as well. So
okay,
we got some familiarity within the unit.
I'd say he's definitely very knowledgeable.
He's a rock star.
Yeah, person to have on your.
Yeah, Chuck was always a rock star. So
yeah, and then I remember I saw you up in Traverse City. You came to one of our recruiting events, and you had it wasn't Scott Myers.
No, that was Joe Cognitory.
Yep, Cognitory. Yeah. So he's your group commander, and how long are you in that unit?
I wasn't there, so I think I was there a little over 2 years, not quite 2.5 years. So when COVID hit, we got activated. The group got activated. So we were running a headquarters out of this complex, but we were they had to put us up in the Crown Plaza Hotel. So during that time, that set of orders.
Where's the Crown Plaza Hotel?
Crown Plaza is in Lansing on the west side.
Okay.
West side of Lansing. So it was, 10-minute drive to work every day. But it was an easy drive because nobody was on the streets, right? Everything was shut down. So we're working here in this complex and then driving to a hotel in the evening. But and basically what we are taking care of all the logistics for the units. I think it was primarily 177th, were the units that were going out and doing the COVID testing or setting up the hospitals and that kind of stuff. We were running logistics. So we were in charge of getting the hotel rooms, getting the rental cars and that kind of stuff is what our operations was doing for that. That being said, those orders put me in a sanctuary. They got me to 18 years active federal service.
Oh, that's good.
So that mission ran for roughly 3 months, but because I was on sanctuary, they had to keep me on orders. So I was still the group CSM, but after a little transition, I think it took a while to figure out what they were going to do with me. They made me the Task Force 172 CSM. The task force is primarily ran by the Air Force guys, but what happened is when COVID hit, all the volunteers were shut down. Food banks needed workers, so the Michigan National Guard provided soldiers and airmen. So I think at one time we had up to 9 food banks that we were providing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 60% of the personnel were Army. I think 30% ish were Air Force, but the entire staff, besides myself, at least initially, was all Air Force. So I think that's probably part of the reason why I was put into that, was to give it some Army representation, especially since over 50% of the workforce was Army. Mm-hmm. So did that for roughly 13 months, I want to say. And through this process, also known as sanctuary, I'm starting my transition out of Army. And then about the time I came out of that, because of the transition, so they reopened the E9 position at Fort Custer, and I assumed the command sergeant major position at Fort Custer in September or October of 2021. So
did you go when you hit sanctuary? Did they let you go past 20 years?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, well, yeah, no. I think just a couple of days. I think after, that month rounded out to May, and so, but the way the active duty does it, they retire on the first of the month. So I retired on June 1st, 2022. But what was really cool is where it come full circle is, that's why I alluded to it earlier, is that my mother was working at Fort Custer when my parents met, and my last duty station was as CSM.
Fort Custer, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so when you retired, you retired active duty.
I retired active duty. I went down to Fort Knox, signed out, and had X amount of transitional leave, and
yeah. So you really didn't get a choice on like I know when I retired, I decided I wanted to retire. You just
no, yeah, it's part of sanctuary. Yeah, I mean, it's 20 and done. So, because like you had alluded to earlier, I was racking up points, right, and also keeping an eye on how old I could be when I was retired. So, before I hit sanctuary, I was looking at September of 2023. But then when I hit sanctuary, so that basically not only gave me the ability to collect a check 15 months earlier, but the difference between active duty and National Guard is also I got track credit for life immediately, as opposed to having to wait until 60 years old. Yeah. So I've got the health insurance as well.
Yeah. So then you go to Fort Knox, and
so
what year was that and what month?
December 21. Was my first visit. That was for the physical stuff. And went through the physical process quick and easy, as we were all out of there in the morning. Actually, went with Sergeant Major Gunnison, who at the time was retiring out of the Michigan National Guard G1 position. So we both went down there at the same time. That was December, and then in March, from that, I did all the calculations, and then I got reassigned a date to go final out in March of 2022.
So when you signed out, what was you signed out, and then you leave there? You're in Kentucky. Fort Knox.
Yep. So, which is halfway to Virginia Beach,
Yep.
which is where my daughter lives. So I figured, you know what? I packed Mom up. We went down to sign out and figured the Army could pay for half my trip to see my daughter.
Yep.
So we
Good
left
idea.
Kentucky and shot over to Virginia Beach and spent some time with my daughter and granddaughter.
So what at this point you have 38 years of service?
I retired with 38 years, 2 months, and 8 days.
Okay, it's pretty precise.
That's what my DD 214 said.
And so you sign out, and what's your first thought when you walk out of the building?
Really,
Like, how did it feel?
I was ready. And I've been telling people this for months. Those last 2 years in that building sucked the fucking life out of me. I tell people this day, the best thing that happened to Michigan National Guard is Building 20 fucking implodes. Because the damn politics and fucking bullshit that goes on in there is ruining it for all the units in the damn state. But yeah, that working there.
You said Building 20. So
Yes, which is the Michigan Army National Guard headquarters.
Okay.
It is the best thing for the Guard if that thing implodes. Because it was miserable working there. And so I was happy. But, you know, and I was a guy that, you know, was going to do it until forever, right? I mean, so, but yeah, I couldn't get out of there fast enough after spending time in that building.
Yeah, I can imagine politics can wear on you.
Oh yeah, it sucked the life right out of me.
Yeah. So you're out. You're glad. You're happy.
Yep. And then I still have my state position, right, to come back to. I was on orders for 2 years, but I'm a state employee for the Michigan Department of Veteran Affairs. In the CFMO. So, signed out in March, was on leave until 1 June, took some time because of some family stuff and a retirement party. After the 4th of July, I went back to work to my civilian job. But that was they were still in the working from home thing. I didn't care for working from home. I'm going through the VA process and all that, and with changes, and so basically, I think late 22 December-ish, maybe, but it was starting to wear on me, and so basically, I think it was the end of January, maybe first part of February, I decided I was done. So I sent my notice in, and then retired at the end of February of 2023. Retired.
So you retired from your full-time position as a civilian, and that had to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
So
still is a pretty damn good feeling.
Yeah. You don't have to.
You asked me about the Army. I don't know but yeah, it's still now, and I think maybe that's part of it, right? I mean, leaving the Army, I still had my civilian job to go to, but now, yeah, I do whatever I want.
You just go.
It's a good thing.
How many days did you golf last week?
7.
Days?
Sunday through Saturday. Golfed every day. So,
that's awesome. Well, that's what you work for, right?
Absolutely.
You don't work to go back to work.
No, I've been able to do some traveling. Got to see people I haven't seen in a while. Went out and visited my brother out in Nevada. Gone down to see my daughter down in Virginia. So it's now we're talking about going down in December to visit some friends down in Houston. So yeah,
play some golf in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely, brother, absolutely.
So if there's anything, you had 38 years in the service. If there's anything that anybody who was listening to this conversation could take away from it, what would you want them to know or hear?
I think I always knew this is what I wanted to do. But you were asking earlier that seeing my mother dying young, my dad seeing what he went through, and I think the other part that pushed me, not only my love for what I did in shooting howitzers, but was the benefits that come out of this. You know, I'm the fifth of the six boys, but I'm the first one of the boys to retire. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got a pension, I've got full medical benefits, and I, you know, I got brothers pushing 70 that are still working. So I think I survived, and I know it took, you know, through this process, it took a toll on my family, you know, especially my kids, because they really didn't understand. You know, I believe my wife did, but, you know, even though she sacrificed a lot, she understood. But when the kids growing up, I don't think they understood why Dad was gone all the time. And it probably still resonates in some aspect. So, you know, so part of that is part of my regrets. But the fact that, yeah, I made it, and that I don't have the stress and worries that I saw my parents have to deal with, at my age. I mean, I'm actually older now than my mom was when she died, but the stress that my dad had to deal with financially and those issues, I don't have to worry about. You know, I was at the bank the other day and had both my driver's license and my retirement ID out. And my driver's license picture was taken a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I think I look younger now that I'm retired. And I think it's just because of the stress. I don't have the stress that I have, you know, not financially or the work stress. And I'm much happier right now than I have been in years.
I'm glad that, as hard as it might have been, you're glad you made it through.
Yes.
And what I think is what you're saying is, if someone's listening to this and they're going through a rough time, remember it's a season, and it's just get through it.
What else scares me too is, you know, and I've talked to my kids about this too, right? They're all in their 30s, all five of them. None of them have a retirement plan. And I think this is a generational thing. I think we have failed the follow-on generations. We got rid of the pensions. They expect everybody to do on 401k, but, you know, unless you're into some type of program that's set up, that's, the things that my kids are working on, their businesses don't offer that type of stuff. So, you know, especially the oldest, Brian, is pushing 40. I fear those guys are going to be working until they die. And that's sad. And I think we did that as a generation to our younger generations. And I'm sad about that.
Understood. Yeah, I agree with you. There's not a lot out there when it comes to retirement, but I'm really glad that I stuck it out, and obviously you are too. And
yeah, I think I was too hard. I always tell everybody I was a cockroach of the Michigan Army National Guard because everybody wanted me to go away, and I never did. So,
well, Joe, I really appreciate your time today. It was great to learn more about your story and why you served and where you served. But I really appreciate, and I'm glad we were able to meet.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Anytime.
Thank you very much.
God bless America.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Veterans Archives, the podcast that brings you the story of the men and women who have created and lived our military history. If you or someone you know served in the military and would like to share your story with Veterans Archives, please go to www.veteransarchives.org, select the Apply Now button, and fill out our application, and someone will get right back with you. Veterans Archives is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we rely on the donations of our listeners. If you are enjoying these stories and you support our efforts, please go to www.veteransarchives.org and select the Donate button. Any donation is certainly appreciated. Look for Veterans Archives on your favorite social media. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look for Veterans Archives. Like, follow, and share our page. We'd certainly appreciate it. If you or someone you know is a veteran and you are struggling with mental health issues, please dial 988 and select option 1 for the Veterans Crisis Hotline. Please be sure to tune in next time for the next episode of Veterans Archives.